When you hear the word Viking, you probably imagine ruthless warriors wearing horned helmets. But almost everything you've seen in movies is wrong. The real Vikings were explorers, traders, farmers, and some of the greatest sailors in history. This is their true story. The Vikings came from Scandinavia, a rugged land of towering mountains, deep fjords, dense forests. The word Viking didn't describe an entire people. It referred to those who ventured overseas on expeditions, whether to trade, explore, or raid distant lands. Long before they became famous as fierce warriors, most Vikings lived as ordinary farmers, raising livestock, growing crops, and supporting their families. As populations grew and resources became limited, many Vikings looked beyond the horizon in search of fertile land, valuable goods, and new opportunities. Around the late 8th century, their longships began sailing across Europe, marking the start of what historians now call the Viking Age. Life in Scandinavia was far from easy. Bitter winters and rocky landscapes demanded resilience, determination, and resourcefulness to survive. Entire families lived together in wooden longhouses where they cooked, worked, and gathered around the fire to stay warm during the freezing winters. Daily life revolved around farming, crafting tools, caring for animals, and preparing enough food to endure the long months of cold weather. The surrounding seas were another lifeline, providing fish and opening trade routes that connected the Vikings with distant cultures. Far from being only raiders, the Vikings were skilled merchants who traded furs, amber, iron, and silver throughout Europe and beyond. The truth is, the Vikings were much more than warriors. They were explorers, traders, craftsmen, and settlers whose influence can still be seen around the world today. These ships changed history forever. They carried the Vikings across oceans into kingdoms and turned them into one of the most feared civilizations in Europe. But what made these legendary longships so special? Let's find out. The Vikings' greatest advantage wasn't their weapons. It was their incredible longships that could cross both open seas and shallow rivers. Built from overlapping oak planks, these lightweight ships were strong, flexible, and fast enough to outrun many enemies of their time. Without modern compasses, Viking sailors relied on the sun, stars, coastlines, and years of experience to find their way across vast oceans. Their remarkable ships carried them farther than most Europeans had ever imagined, reaching Iceland, Greenland, and even the shores of North America. Because their ships needed very little water, the Vikings could sail deep into rivers, reaching towns and kingdoms that believed they were safe from attack. To many coastal villages, the sight of dragon-headed ships emerging from the morning fog became a symbol of both fear and uncertainty. In the year 793, Viking warriors attacked the monastery of Lindisfarne in England, an event that shocked Europe and marked the beginning of the Viking Age. The isolated monastery had little protection, allowing the Vikings to strike quickly before anyone could organize a defense. Monasteries held valuable treasures, including gold, silver, and beautifully decorated manuscripts, making them attractive targets for Viking raids. But the Vikings were far more than raiders. Many became successful traders, craftsmen, and settlers, building communities wherever they traveled. Within a few generations, Viking influence stretched across Britain, France, Ireland, Eastern Europe, Iceland, and Greenland through exploration, trade, and settlement. Their voyages reshaped kingdoms, expanded trade routes, and connected distant cultures, leaving a legacy that continues to influence the world today. But it wasn't just their voyages that made them legendary. It was the warriors who stepped ashore. For the Vikings, battle was more than survival. It was a test of courage, loyalty, and honor, with every warrior ready to defend their people. Their weapons were simple but deadly. Axes were common, spears were dependable, and swords were treasured symbols of wealth and status. A Viking shield was more than protection. It was an essential tool that helped warriors survive the chaos of battle. Most Vikings wore simple clothing and carried sturdy shields, while only the wealthiest could afford iron helmets and chainmail armor. By locking their shields together, Viking warriors created a solid wall of defense, making it difficult for enemies to break through their ranks. Stories tell of the berserkers, legendary warriors set to fight with unmatched courage and relentless determination. Whether myth or reality, they became lasting symbols of Viking legend. At the center of Norse mythology stood Odin, the wise All-Father, respected for his endless pursuit of knowledge and wisdom. Thor, the god of thunder, was admired for his strength and believed to protect both gods and humans with his mighty hammer. Loki was the trickster, known for his clever mind and unpredictable actions that could change the fate of gods and mortals alike. The Vikings believed that those who fought bravely could be welcomed into Valhalla, Odin's great hall, where honored warriors would prepare for the battles of the future. At the heart of Norse mythology stood Yggdrasil, the great tree believed to connect the 9 realms and all forms of life. Their myths spoke of Ragnarok, a final battle that would bring the end of an age before a new world could rise. The Vikings had conquered the seas of Europe, but their greatest voyage was still ahead. Those voyages carried the Vikings farther than anyone expected, opening new routes that connected distant lands across the North Atlantic. Each new voyage expanded their influence, bringing Scandinavian culture, trade, and craftsmanship to places they had never reached before. Wherever they settled, the Vikings built farms, workshops, and communities that transformed empty frontiers into thriving settlements. These settlements became important centers for farming, fishing, and trade, helping Viking society grow beyond simple raiding. Trade soon became just as valuable as conquest, connecting the Vikings with merchants from Europe, the Middle East, and even Asia. Their trade routes stretched across rivers and seas, linking distant civilizations long before modern transportation existed. Yet life beyond Scandinavia was never easy. Harsh weather, unfamiliar lands, and competition for resources tested every new settlement. Some colonies prospered for generations, while others slowly disappeared as survival became increasingly difficult. Even when settlements were abandoned, the knowledge gained from those voyages changed Europe's understanding of the world forever. Meanwhile, back in Scandinavia, Viking society was beginning to change. Powerful kings united smaller kingdoms, creating stronger governments that relied less on overseas raids. Across Europe, better defenses made Viking attacks far more dangerous and far less rewarding than before. At the same time, Christianity spread across Scandinavia, gradually reshaping Viking beliefs and traditions. By 1066, the Viking Age had largely come to an end, closing nearly 3 centuries of expansion and exploration. Yet the Vikings left behind far more than stories of battle. Their settlements, trade routes, and innovations shaped generations to come. Their advanced shipbuilding and navigation inspired future explorers to venture farther across the world's oceans. Archaeologists continue to uncover Viking ships, homes, and artifacts, revealing new pieces of their remarkable history. Each discovery reminds us that behind every legend were real people driven by curiosity, resilience, and determination. Their influence can still be found in languages, place names, traditions, and cultures across Northern Europe. The Vikings proved that courage and innovation could connect distant worlds long before the age of global exploration. Their ships have vanished from the seas, but their achievements continue to inspire historians, explorers, and dreamers alike. The Viking Age may have ended, but its legacy lives on wherever people dare to explore the unknown. Follow for more journeys through history.